This is John Wardley. And this is a coaster designed by him. And this one. And this, okay, you get the idea. But how did he get into all of this? Well, it all started when he was working on the Bond films. I know, this man was everywhere. But he was there doing special effects for the Bond films, living what the dream would be for so many, yet he was bored. You see, he used to work in theatre, trained as a stage manager even, and in the theatre you get feedback. Straight away. You get to watch people fall in love live, but with film, you've got to wait 18 months before you can see a glimpse of a reaction. And he'd also seen how people love the VIP tours, seeing these massive set pieces come to life before them, and he thought, how can we bring this to the mass market? So John was looking around for something new and exciting when he stumbled on the idea of a theme park. Whilst this concept had really taken off in the USA due to the rise of the Disney parks, it hadn't really appeared over here in the UK. Sure, there were fun fairs and rides and such, but there wasn't that themed experience. There wasn't the immersion, the getaway, it was just there. So John started working for theme parks, creating animatronics for small dark rides, and it was revolutionary. Nobody had quite done what John was doing outside of Disney. It was an entirely new market, but it was a hit. It was so much of a hit that Two Swords came knocking at his door. Chessington Zoo was dwindling in attendance numbers and they needed something to spruce up the park. John agreed and started the plan from moving Chessington Zoo into Chessington's World of Adventures, with two main things: a dark ride and an area with a unique coaster. A unique coaster you may know better as the Vampire. There was a special challenge to the Vampire, like no coaster before it, and that was that it had to be themed. It was simple enough to theme a dark ride up and give it a story, but a coaster? It hadn't been done before, and he simply refused to just plonk a coaster on a concrete car park. So John was looking for a unique coaster, something different, something new, when he discovered Aerodynamic's new ride type, the suspended coaster. It was unlike any coaster before it because of one feature. The trains hung under the track. Not only this, but Arrow had licensed the ride for Vekoma to build, and Vekoma introduced another element to this ride: themed trains. Perfect. So the coaster was underway, set out to be a one-of-a-kind experience based around the feeling of flight, hence the name. The ride would swerve in and out of the Transylvania area through Gothic buildings and wild woods, and off the ride, you had even more filming, like the Black Forest Chateau that had entertainment with an animatronic playing the organ, mimicking the one in the queue. And it was a huge success. The UK loved it for precisely all the things John expected they would: the uniqueness and the theme aspect. This meant that when Two Swords acquired Alton Towers in a similar state, they knew exactly the man to call. Despite its popularity when it first opened, Alton Towers' attendance was dying a death, and it had led to them bringing in second and even third-hand rides. The initial plan had been to bring in a coaster for the 92 season, with the initial proposal being a racing wooden coaster that went across the valley. But the park thought that a wooden coaster wouldn't bring visitors into the park. So it being very apparent that a coaster wouldn't be built in time, they pivoted focus to a dark ride. The haunted house needed to bring the same height to Alton Towers that Bubbleworks and the Vampire had done to Chessington before it, so he applied the same principles of intrigue, amuse, enchant. It also needed to feel unique to elsewhere, something specific to Alton Towers itself, and the ghostly charm of a haunted house felt perfect to fill that role. One final thing that was required was a high capacity and to be well loved by all. Wardley didn't want to scare off the families. He wanted to draw them in. The idea behind it was that the ghosts, whilst frightening and ugly, just wanted to be friendly. So it needed appeal, with an edge. Wardley had a very clear vision for what he wanted, and the process started with a model of the exact ride. They even managed to create a ride POV by putting the camera inside the model, and this helped them to see the gags, to check that it was spooky whilst also being a lot of fun. Every single element was engineered effectively to capture the audience's attention. One example of this was the Trommel Tunnel, which was described in the script to be a point with huge flames and lasers. But in order to remain in budget, They used mist and glitter balls. Literal smoke and mirrors. Another gag that I think really shows John's intentions with the ride was the spider scene. It takes a very common fear and amplifies it, with the spiders slowly growing bigger and bigger, creating a scare while still being cartoonish rather than horrifying. And once again, it was a huge success. So Towers switched back to their initial plans, their showstopper, a coaster. This, like the vampire before it, had to be something unique that had the potential to be highly themed. And due to their pre-existing relationship, due to their work on the vampire, Wardley turned to aerodynamics for this new ride, the pipeline coaster. The pipeline coaster had a train that sat between the track, and Wardley came up with the theme of a weapons base, hence the name, Secret Weapon. It seemed perfect. It was unique with the potential to be highly themed. But when John rode it, he found it dull and boring, so he went back to the drawing board. This was when he heard of a new and exciting ride type from Swiss company Bollinger & Mabillard, the inverted coaster. It was very similar to the arrow suspended coaster in the fact that it hung under the track, but with one key difference. It could go upside down. And after riding back on the ride, he just knew he had to bring it to Alton Towers. So he and Nick Varney, the marketing director for Alton Towers at the time, started to develop the backstory, something that would entice visitors. The idea was that during a routine excavation by the Ministry of Defence, an alien had been discovered, and that the track we were riding was the steel holding down the monster. And once again, at no one's surprise, it was a huge success. Not only that, but it opened with a mountain of merch. One of the items being a souvenir audio cassette tape by Tom Baker, the fourth Doctor. Both the Doctor Who fan and the coaster enthusiast in me needs to hear this cassette tape so bad. So, after the success of Nemesis, it was only natural that they moved on to their next project for the 98 season. The initial plan was to create a flying coaster, but after realising the complexity of this, they switched to a simpler but still unique idea. A coaster that had a fully vertical drop. Well, I mean, it's not entirely vertical, it's only 7.5 degrees. So construction began in 1997, with most of the Fantasy World rides being relocated to other areas of the park. A guard stood directly outside the construction site, but said nothing. He just kept the crowds away. It was strange because something was clearly going on. They were trying to hide it. Created something sinister. Something like those places a few miles away, in a field with barbed wire, where people who worked there say nothing. A theme that would continue on when the ride was complete. And the hype was built fast, but the only thing that the public knew was it was a world first. After their success with Nemesis, Wardley decided it was best to bring B&M back in to help with this unique challenge. The first of which being that the trains couldn't be like normal trains. They had to be short trains in order to go down vertically, as when trains go vertical, the front of the train gets accelerated down, whilst the back of the train gets pulled forward. Yikes. This meant that if you wanted high capacity, they'd have to be wide. These trains also weighed a lot more, which meant that the track itself had to be wider to support the vehicle weight. They also made stadium-style seating to give each row that front row view, which I would say does pretty well. So a few months before opening this ride, they actually announced what it would be, with the TV advert being filmed in the studio due to it not being finished yet. And it was huge. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing about Oblivion. With everything from Fanta to deodorant, John Wardley specifically wanted to announce it later, as if you announce it too soon, the media doesn't care anymore by the time it's out, and you've lost all the hype. And more importantly, you've lost all your visitors. Once the ride opened, the queues were huge, with people waiting upwards of 3 hours on opening day. So with that success out of the way, they focused back on flight. Everything was kept secretive and under wraps, with some of the B&M workers not even knowing what was being worked on. Every tiny detail was kept secure in one small location in Switzerland. The harness alone went through countless amounts of testing. It had to be able to fit a variety of sizes while still being comfortable and, most importantly, safe. So Wardley and B&M came up with the vest restraints, something comfortable with a ridiculous amount of redundancy. And it worked fantastically. Another important thing for this ride was that it had to be different to the two B&M coasters before it. Rather than the villain, this ride would be the hero. The quiet oasis at the back of the park that allowed everyone to live the dream and fly like a bird, like Superman. Once again, it was a success, but Two Swords was acquired, and John was let go. Whilst this seems sad, this wasn't the end for John Wardley, who'd gone on to consult for many more rides, including but not limited to the Smiler M13, And now he's in semi-retirement. I think we're lucky as a country that we have him. He pushed the theme park industry to be better. Who knows what would have happened without him. If you want to learn more about John Wardley, you should read his autobiographies, Creating My Own Nemesis and Life After Nemesis. And if you want to hear more from me, why? Because I'm awesome. You should watch my video on why the UK is so inversion obsessed.